What's up everybody, I hope you guys are all having a great day today. So in today's video, we're going to be ranking every single weapon in Black Ops 2 Zombies, even including wonder weapons. So with that being said, let's get a sick transition to go into our video. Alright, so now that we're here on tier making, I want to let you guys know that I did actually make this tier list myself. So if you guys want to try out and using this template yourself, I will have that linked in the description below as well as in the comments. And also one last thing before we get started with this tier list, I did put wonder weapons specifically by themselves just because I don't think it's going to be fair to have every single wonder weapon at S tier, but I will be ranking them individually in that category. And another thing with the wonder weapons, I'm gonna do them last just because I think it'll be more neat to do, starting with the basic weapons, and then we'll get further on until we get to the wonder weapons. But anyways, let's get started. I'm gonna start from left to right, and we're just gonna keep going through this tier list. Alright, so first we're gonna start off with the 5.7. Honestly, it is a pretty solid weapon. What would I give it? I'm not really too sure, and I'm counting the dual wield version as well because it is pretty solid regardless if it's dual wield or not dual wield. I don't know, honestly, I think B tier wouldn't really be all that bad for it. I think I'm gonna go with B tier. I don't think it's quite A tier. It is pretty solid, but it is kind of middle of the pack. So we'll go with B tier. It is pretty solid. Like I was saying, the dual 5.7s are obviously a lot better because it's, you know, more ammo and it's literally just the same gun but two of them. But yeah, honestly, these things really aren't that bad. Now skipping the Blundergat, we're to go to the AK-47. This was a pretty solid weapon. It sucked that I was only on one zombies map, and I wish they did have it on more, but I guess that's what makes it better and I guess more iconic in a sense. So I would say that these are better than the 5.7, and in fact I think I will put the AK-47 in A tier. I think it's just good enough to be in A tier. It's probably like bottom A tier. Overall, the ammo's pretty solid and the damage is actually really good. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's actually stronger than the Glil. I could be wrong. I'll pull up the stats on a screen for you guys, but I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the AK-47 is actually stronger than the Glil. Alright, so sticking with another AK, we're gonna move on to the AK-74U. To be honest, this is one of my all-time favorite wall weapons, and I probably have a little bit of a bias for it just because of how much I actually really enjoy using it. So I think I'm gonna give this probably B tier. I think it's slightly better than the 5.7s because overall the damage is pretty well, and the ammo for a wall weapon honestly is not that bad at all. But yeah, no, when I play Transit, I swear this is like my go-to weapon every single time I play. Alright, so skipping past the Acid Gat, like I said I was gonna do, we're gonna move on to the AN-94. Now let's be honest, this is definitely one of the best weapons in Black Ops 2 Zombies, so obviously it's gonna go in S tier. And the reason why it is one of the best weapons is the fact that not only it doesn't deal solid damage, but it's also a wall weapon and has a lot of ammo on top of that. Alright, so we're gonna move on to the RK5's little brother, which was the B23R, or I guess you could call him the older brother since the B23R did come out before we got the RK5 in Black Ops 3. But I'm gonna be honest, as much as I love this gun, as far as like even just looks in general, the damage and ammo really is not that great for this weapon. Sure, it is a wall weapon, but overall it's really not that great. I'm gonna put it at C tier. It is decent. Like I said, it has issues with damage and ammo, which is a huge thing you need in zombies. Alright, so moving on to the Ballista. It honestly wasn't that bad in Origins. I put it as one of my top 5 worst wall weapons, but looking back at it, it's definitely not that bad. However, it's not really that good either because, let's be honest, non-pack punch this thing is absolute garbage, especially if you're not hitting headshots. And that's the thing, the Ballista does have a pretty high headshot multiplier, so you're getting headshots until at least like round 7. So it is honestly a pretty good weapon to have before you get to the Panzer, but once you get there, you better have something else until you upgrade this thing. But overall, I think I would give this a C tier ranking. Now the question is, do I think the Ballista is better than the B23R? And I think it is a little bit better. Yeah, overall it's not really that bad, but it's not really that great either, so I think C tier fits it perfectly. Alright, ballistic knives, I'm gonna be honest, they're not that good. If you get the Bowie knife or Galvan Knuckles, they're alright, I guess. They one shot until I believe round 10 or 13, depending on what you have with them. But the fact that they only one shot until round 13 upgraded is honestly pretty bad. Now if you're playing on co-op, there's a pretty solid third weapon to have just in case you want to revive some teammates and you don't have quick revive. And also a ballistic knife does have some pretty good mobility, but that's kind of expected with a knife. So even with those extra attributes, I don't really think it's that great of a weapon, and I think D tier would actually fit it pretty solid. And speaking of another not great weapon, let's move on to the Barrett M82A1. I didn't get to put the full name in there just because it's a really long name and most people just call it the Barrett. But yeah, this is definitely one of those weapons that might even be a little bit underrated, but it's still not that great regardless. If you're trying to use a sniper in zombies, the Barrett is usually not the way to go, as you have the DSR, which is just so much stronger, and we'll get to that later on the list. But for now, I think I'm gonna put the Barrett maybe in front of the Ballista, or maybe not. I don't know, because that's the thing though, the Ballista is a wall weapon and you're gonna get more ammo from it, but is it stronger? I honestly don't really know. I think the Barrett is a little bit stronger than the Ballista. I could be wrong though. You know what, just because the Ballista and the B23R are wall weapons, I'm probably gonna put the Barrett behind it just because the Barrett doesn't even really have that much ammo to begin with either. So I'm thinking C tier will be good for this. I do think the Barrett is a little bit better than the ballistic knives, but that's just my opinion. And we got both Blundergats here, and we're gonna skip over to Blundergat and Acid Gat for now. We're gonna go to the Chicom. I don't need to say anything about it. We know it's Not good ammo, not good damage. The best thing about it is it's a point weapon, but you can grab any other gun. You can grab the Type 25 if you want it. That's a better point gun. Yeah, there's not really much to talk about. I mean, it feels good to shoot. It runs out of ammo quick and it doesn't do any damage, so you probably kill like maybe 20 zombies with it. If you're lucky, then that's like in the early rounds too. That's like the first 8 to 10 rounds at most. But yeah, let's move on to something that's a lot better than the Chicom. And of course, I'm talking about the Death Machine. Let's be honest, this is one of the best weapons in zombies. In fact, this is such a great weapon. It's even just a power-up at this point in zombies. And you know the Death Machine is good because they basically have this thing as a power-up from, I believe, Black Ops 1 until Black Ops 3. Or no, Black Ops 4. That's right, in Black Ops 4 they do have an ability. I believe it's overpower or overkill, something like that. I think it's overkill. All right, but yeah, let's move on to the Black Ops 2 Death Machine, and I think it's actually a really solid weapon. Obviously, it has a lot of ammo, and the damage is pretty good on it too. However, I can't deny that the mobility on this thing is absolutely garbage. So overall, it is better than the 74U and the 5.7. Would I put it in A tier or B tier? It's not going to be S tier, but it's going to be like A or B tier. I just don't know. Like, it's obviously better than the 74U and the 5.7. I don't think it's better than the AK-47 just because the mobility kills it alone. But then I'm going to put it at the top of B tier, and the main issue, like I said earlier, is the mobility. The mobility on this thing is just absolutely garbage. It just makes me not want to use it. Unless I'm camping, I don't want to use this thing at all. Alright, so now let's move on to the DSR-50. Let's be honest, everybody loves the DSR-50, especially when you upgrade it and get that iron sight. Nothing looks more clean than the DSR-50 with an iron sight. But with that being said, this thing also has great damage, great mobility, and has a decent amount of ammo, especially for a sniper in the early games. I really feel like the DSR-50 can be S tier, borderline A tier at worst, but like it's a really good weapon. I don't know if it's quite S tier. The damage is really good. So you know what? I'm gonna put it S tier. Overall, the DSR is pretty solid. The one shots for a while, I believe until like the late 30s. I could be wrong. I'm not really too sure. I don't use it that much. But yeah, the DSR is pretty solid, and I think it is deserving of S tier. Alright, so now let's move on to the Executioner. It has a shotgun's damage, and it has a pistol's mobility. I think that's a win-win. The Executioner, I honestly think could be, it's like the DSR. It's top A tier, maybe S tier, and like it's overall really solid. But I'll be honest, I think I'd rather have the Executioner over the DSR. The mobility is so good on this thing. On top of that, like the DSR, damage is there and ammo is there. It's really good, and in fact I think it is better than the DSR-50. I just don't think it's better than the AN-94 though. Now moving on to a classic Black Ops 1 weapon brought to Black Ops 2, and we got the FN FAL. Honestly, the FAL's pretty good. I feel like it's a little bit underrated if I had to give my honest opinion on it. However, the main thing that kills it for me has to be the fact that once you upgrade it, it is a 3-round burst. Why they made that idea, I have no idea. It was probably one of the worst decisions they made with this gun. But besides that, the damage is pretty solid, and the ammo really isn't that bad. It could be a little bit better, but honestly the ammo really isn't horrible. Okay, so I think this could be a little bit of a hot take, but I think like B tier would be pretty solid for it. I'm not going to say it's better than a Death Machine, and I don't think it's better than the 74U. It's pretty solid. It's like kind of right here. I think it's better than the 5.7 though, to be honest. I think we'll put it behind the AK-74U. The FN FAL is pretty solid, but like I said, the worst thing about the FN FAL is the fact that once you upgrade it, it does become a burst, and with that you're wasting ammo, and then that kind of makes the ammo go by a little bit quick with how little you really have with the weapon, to be honest. But yeah, FN FAL is better than the 5.7, but it's not quite as good as the AK-74U, considering that the AK-74U is a wall weapon. Alright, so we're gonna skip the Fire Staff, one of my all-time favorite weapons, by the way, and we're gonna move on to another one of my all-time favorite weapons in the Glow. Alright, so there's not that much I need to say about the Glow. It is S tier. The question is though, where does it go in S tier? It is pretty solid, but is it better than the AN-94, Executioner, or DSR-50? And to answer that, I honestly think it is. Damage is pretty good. The damage is actually better than the AN-94, and the ammo is actually pretty good for an early assault rifle in Call of Duty Zombies. And especially in Black Ops 1, this thing's ammo is really solid, but we're not really talking about Black Ops 1 in this video. We're mainly talking about the Black Ops 2 counterpart of it, which if you look at the stats, it's literally the same from Black Ops 1 to Black Ops 2, but we have Double Tap 2.0, which just makes it so much better. But I'm gonna say the Glow is better overall just because of the damage, and I know the AN-94 is a wall weapon, and ammo can eventually become an issue with the Glow. However, I just think it's overall a better weapon to use. Alright, so let's skip these 3 wonder weapons, and we got the Ice Staff after, and the Jet Gun. Ooh. That might not even make the wonder weapons list, honestly. But we're going to be moving on to the Hammer. I think it's obviously S tier, and it definitely has to be better than the Glow and the AN-94. The damage on this is absolutely insane, and of course, being an LMG, it's supposed to have a lot of ammo, so that's another positive right there. But yeah, no, there's not really that much to say about the Hammer. It's just overall really solid, and it actually, for an LMG, it does have some pretty solid mobility. And I know they nerfed the recoil on the Hammer, but regardless, it's honestly really not that bad. Alright, so let's skip these wonder weapons, especially the Jet Gun. gun. I can't wait to visit that one. We're gonna move on to the Cap 40, which is gonna go in D tier. And where is it gonna go? I think it's gonna go behind the Chicom. Honestly, is this F tier? That's a pretty solid question, and you know what? I'm gonna give the Cap 40 F tier. It's not good. Let's be honest. Ammo's bad, damage is absolutely atrocious. This is the first pistol in Zombies to be from default, not even upgraded, fully automatic, so that's pretty cool. But let's be honest, that's the only thing it has going for it. Now, going from a bad gun like the Cap 40 to moving on to one of the better weapons in Black Ops 2 Zombies, and that's the KSG. Another weapon that unfortunately we only got on one Zombies map, and the worst part about it is the fact that it was on Origins, which has 4 wonder weapons, by the way. The Mauser, the MGOA, it's just, there's so many guns, and you can also get both ray guns in that map. So nobody wants to get the KSG when they're playing. It's pretty solid to use and honestly is underrated. But like I said, it just sucks that there's so many other weapons on that map that are just so good compared to the KSG. But with that being said, the KSG is a pretty solid weapon. The damage is really good, and the damage range, especially for a shotgun, is actually really good, honest. As it shoots a certain type of ammo, I believe it's like slug shots or something like that. That allows the ammo to shoot further or something like that. I could be wrong, I don't know. But talking about the game again, I'm gonna say that it's B tier. It's not quite A tier, but I think it's slightly better than the Death Machine just because the mobility, damage, and ammo are overall better in my opinion. But yeah, that's interesting to look at. However, I think the KSG is slightly better than the Death Machine. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to the LSAT. This is another weapon that wasn't even really on that many maps. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was only on 2 maps, that being Nuketown and Buried. Was it on other maps? I don't think it was, to be honest. But yeah, let's be honest. This is one of the best weapons in Zombies, like in general, not just Black Ops 2, like overall. You count all the games from Black Ops 4 to World at War, this is going to be an S tier and probably even in the top 5, competing with the Dingo. And if Black Ops 2 Zombies did have AATs, I honestly think the LSAT would be better. But I feel like a broken record at this point, but when you have a lot of ammo and great damage with a weapon, it's just unstoppable, right? Let's be honest. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the M1216. It is another weapon that's honestly pretty underrated. If you get it in Origins, this thing absolutely shreds the Panzer. But yeah, now that I think about it, there's honestly a lot of underrated weapons in Black Ops 2 Zombies. There's a lot of mediocre ones too, don't get me wrong, the Cap 40 and Chicom to name a few. But besides it, there's a lot of underrated and surprisingly good weapons in Black Ops 2 Zombies. But yeah, let's not get sidetracked and let's keep talking about the M1216. I think it's pretty solid and I think it is B tier worthy. Where do I put it though? That is the question. So thinking about it now, I think the M1216 is slightly better than the 5.7s. Actually, so I think I'm happy with putting the M1216 at the bottom of B tier, just because the main issue with this gun is not the damage. The damage is honestly pretty solid, in fact, but considering the fact that it is a hybrid automatic, it does shred through ammo pretty quickly. But yeah, I honestly think B tier is pretty solid for the M1216, but I don't think it's better than the 5.7 or any of the other guns I listed so far in B tier. Let's move on to the M14. Alright, so at this stage of life, if you're not an M14 gang member, and yes, we're going to be talking about M14 gang. If you're not an M14 gang member and you're an Olympia gang member, please stop watching this video. But anyways, let's talk about the M14. It is a pretty solid weapon. It's only 500 points. It's one of the first wall weapons you get. It was in Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. And also, it wasn't Black Ops 3, but it was a box weapon, and they put sights on it and attachments for some reason. But we're talking about the Black Ops 2 version, right? So, I think it's better than the Ballista. I don't think it's quite B tier though. I think there's some other weapons that are pretty solid compared to the M14. But for only getting this thing for 500 points off the wall, it is pretty solid and is serviceable. Even upgraded, it's actually pretty solid. But yeah, if you're an Olympia gang member, don't be that guy. If you're struggling with Olympia gang syndrome, please consider contacting us at 1-800-M14-GANG. Thank you for watching. Consider sharing this with your friends and family to help cure and spread awareness about Olympia gang syndrome. Please get help. Alright, so we're going to move on to another wall weapon, and that is the M16A1. What they did to the M16 over time kills me. The fact that they kept it as a burst while upgraded in Black Ops 3 and 4, I believe in Black Ops 3, right? Which I have no idea why they made it a burst in Black Ops 3, 4, and I believe in Cold War was also a burst once upgraded. But that was like one of the coolest features with the M16, and the fact that they got rid of that, it's like, why would you do that? But regardless, the Skull Crusher is a pretty solid weapon, and I think I would honestly give it B tier, slightly over the 5.7s. I honestly don't think it's better than the FAL, but it is a wall weapon, so there kind of is a little bit of a counter there. You know what, actually, I will put this over the FAL, but it's not better than the 74U in my honest opinion. But yeah, I think the M16 fits pretty solid in B tier. I don't think it's better than the 74U, but I think it is better than FN FAL at 5.7 and the M1216. Alright, so this is actually probably a pretty controversial gun, just because of once upgraded, people have such nostalgia for it, considering that once it's upgraded, it's the legendary Mustang and Sally's. But I'm gonna be that guy and say the Mustang and Sally's are the most overrated gun in Zombies. It just is. It's really not that good. I'm almost positive the Mustang and Sally's do the same exact damage as the upgraded War Machine, which really isn't that great to begin with. And obviously we're not really going to be talking that much about the starting pistol version of it because it's not supposed to be good at all. You start with 8 rounds with additional 32 rounds in reserve, and if you get a max ammo you get an additional 80. Good for you, you can get points in early game, but who cares about the 1911 non-upgraded? Once you upgrade it, that's the main thing. But giving a 1911 a tier ranking, I think it's probably going to be criminal putting it in C or B tier, but regardless, I don't think it's nearly as good as everyone puts it out to be. So I think I'm gonna put it in B tier. Obviously the base 1911 isn't that good, but once you upgrade it and get Mustang and Sally's, it is decently better, but it's not really that great anyways. And especially in Black Ops 2 when we only have PhD once, and then a 1911 just so happens to not be on that map. And I mean, I guess technically in Buried you do have PhD Flopper, but it is a perma perk on that map, so sometimes you might not have it and screw yourself over. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to one of the best point makers in Call of Duty Zombies, and that's the M1927. And that's the thing with the M1927 is the damage really isn't that good, but it does have a lot of ammo, which makes it a pretty solid point gun. So it leaves the question, where would I put the 1927? But considering that it is a pretty weak weapon with a lot of ammo, kind of makes it a little bit weird to rank, because regardless you're still gonna get a lot of kills with this gun. So just like the M1911, I did underrank it a little bit, and I think I'm gonna do the same thing with the M1927 and put it probably one spot above the M1911 actually. The M1927 is just another gun that's not as good as advertised like the 1911, but it is pretty solid for points, which makes it good for B tier in my opinion. Alright, so now we're gonna move on to another map specific weapon, and it pains me that the M27 is only on one map. Because I'm gonna be honest, it's probably one of my all-time favorite guns. The overall damage is solid, the ammo is pretty solid for it, and this gun just looks really good. Like as far as a gun model, this is probably one of my favorite looking guns as well. With all that being said, I'm gonna put it in A tier. Overall, it's pretty similar to the AK-47. I'm not sure how it looks as far as stats. I think the M27 might actually have a little bit more ammo, but deals less damage. They're basically the same gun. I would just keep them in the same ranking. Now we got the M8A1. This weapon really isn't that good. I think it's gonna be either in C or D tier. I don't know if it's gonna be D tier. The main issue with this gun is the damage isn't really great, and the ammo really isn't the best either, considering that's a burst. It's a 4-round burst. So I think it's better than the Chicom. I think it's better than the Ballistic Knife, and it might be a little bit better than the B23R and the Barrett. I don't know though. I think I'm going to go with C tier, but I'm going to put it behind the Ballista, as I just think the Ballista is overall better, just considering how good the headshot damage is with the Ballista compared to the M8A1. Would I rather use the M14 over the M8A1? Honestly, I think I would. But yes, now we're moving on to some of my all-time favorite weapons in Zombies. We got the Mauser, which probably is a little bit overrated as well, but I just love this gun so much. It sucks that this is only on one map, but I'm so happy they brought it back in Black Ops 3. Not like I played a Black Ops 3 version of Origins a lot, but it is really cool, because not only did they bring back the MG08, they also brought back the Mauser, which was really cool to see. The Mauser was something brand new that we've had, and for the first time in Zombies we had something besides the 1911, which threw people off, but I really do enjoy the Mauser. It's a pretty solid weapon, but obviously non-upgraded it's the exact same as the M1911, but once upgraded this thing is basically just a baby ray gun, and we will take that. I think I'm going to put the Mauser at A tier. I think I could put it in front of the AK-47 and the M27 just because of its ray gun abilities, but the main thing with the Mauser is its ammo, so once you run out of ammo that sucks. There's just so many things about the Mauser that makes it pretty good, and I think A tier is a pretty good ranking for it. Alright, so moving on to another map specific weapon, that's the MG08. I think this is quite obvious to say this is the best weapon in Black Ops 2 Zombies, other than the Wonder weapons. So we're going to put it at S tier, it's obvious. And I'm not sure if the LSAT has this same ability, but with the MG08, it does ricochet bullets, which makes your damage even better with the MG08. But besides that, the LSAT and the MG08 actually have the same exact stats. So I guess I could say the MG08 is always slightly better just because of that ricochet ability. Alright, so we're going to move on to yet another map exclusive weapon, and that's the MP40. The MP40 is pretty solid, but you get what you get out of this gun. There's like a backup weapon just in case you have to get something off the wall once you run out of ammo. But I don't think it's quite necessarily an A tier gun, but it's definitely B tier. I don't think it's better than Death Machine though. I just think it's slightly better than AK-74U. Really, if you wanted to, you could switch the MP40 and AK-74U. They're basically similar to me. I think the 74U actually has a little bit more damage once upgraded. But regardless, the MP40 is a pretty solid weapon, and I might honestly be using a little bit of bias to rank this over the AK-74U. But regardless, the MP40 is pretty solid. Alright, so now moving on to the MP5. This is actually one of my favorite weapons to use. It's not really that good, but it's just one of the more fun guns to use in my opinion. But I think I'm going to put the MP5 in B tier. This might be a little bit too high, but I'm going to put it right above the 1911. Alright, so now let's move on to the MTAR. When you're talking about Black Ops 2, I feel like this is one of the first weapons everybody brings up because it just it's really solid overall. The damage is pretty good and the ammo is pretty good. Once you upgrade it, it is pretty solid too. But overall, the MTAR is middle of the pack. I think it is better than the Death Machine in all honesty. And you know, honestly, I think I'll put it at A tier. It's a really good weapon, and it's honestly pretty solid to have for the early 20s, and even into the mid 20s as well. However, ammo does become a problem at some point just because the damage isn't quite there. Yeah, but now think about it, A tier is pretty solid for the MTAR. Yeah, we talked about this gun earlier. Please consider contacting us at 1-800-M14-GANG. But on a serious note, the Olympia upgrade isn't really that bad. Obviously, it's not a go-to gun unless it's like a last resort. But in the early rounds, this is a pretty solid shotgun, and its damage is actually pretty solid once upgraded. We're going to put the Olympia right behind the Ballista. But like I said, the Olympia does have some pretty solid damage for how early you can get this weapon in the game. Alright, so the next gun we're going to move on to is the PDW, and this is another one of my favorite weapons in zombies. Unfortunately, the damage isn't as good as I remember it. It is a pretty decent weapon overall, but the damage isn't really there. However, the ammo is pretty solid with this gun. So with that being said, I think I'm going to put this above the 74U and the MP40. I think I'm going to put this above the Death Machine as well. The PDW is a pretty solid weapon to have in the early games, and it serves a great purpose, especially on die rise. Alright, so we're almost done with the base weapons, and now we're going to move on to another classic weapon that was in Black Ops 1, but they ported over to Black Ops 2, and that's the Python. The only thing I would say about the Python is the damage is nowhere near as strong as the Executioner in my opinion. So I think I'm going to put this at the top of A tier. I don't think it's better than the DSR 50. And I don't think it's quite A tier, but the Python is a pretty solid weapon to have. Alright, so we have yet again another reskin of the Executioner and the Python, and that's the Remington New Model Army. This was such a cool gun to have on Buried. Obviously, it fits the map really well because it's Western themed. But let's talk about the important things about this, and that's the damage, mobility, and ammo. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this has more ammo than both the Python and the Executioner. Like I said, I could be wrong, I'm not too sure about that. But thinking about it, I'm pretty sure this Remington New Model Army is overall a better weapon than the Executioner. I feel like it is S tier worthy. So with that being said, I think I'm going to put it in front of the Executioner, but not quite in front of the AN-94. I think what gets the AN-94 for me is the fact that it's a wall weapon, and it is really strong up until the 30s, and even 40s is really not that bad either. But yeah, S tier for the Remington New Model Army definitely makes a lot of sense for me. Alright, so now we're finally getting away from the reskinned weapons, and we're going to talk about the Remington 870 MCS, and I believe that's the full name for it. But sticking with the Remington, I think we're going to move it on over to C tier, maybe B tier. I think we're going to put it in B tier, but I don't think it's better than the M1927. The Remington has pretty solid damage and ammo's alright, but for the price of this weapon, I don't think it's really worth what you're getting. I believe this gun is 1500 points. But yeah, I think B tier is alright for the Remington, and this was probably one of my first weapons I've ever used in Call of Duty in general, and it's just such a cool, nostalgic thing to think about. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the final LMG of the game, and that's the RPD. The RPD is pretty solid. However, the main issue with it is the damage. Of course, it has a lot of ammo, and the reloading isn't the best on this, and I guess the mobility isn't great either. The ammo is there, and that's one of the main things in zombies, is the ammo and, of course, damage. So with that being said, I think the RPD is better than the Death Machine. I feel like this might be criminal, but I think the RPD is worse than the Death Machine. But now that I think about it, I don't think the PDW is better than the RPD. So I think I'm actually going to change my PDW ranking. But now think about it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to put the PDW right behind the RPD. This just makes more sense. But overall, the RPD is just a little bit better than the PDW. Alright, yeah, we got the RPG now. It's not the best weapon in this game, and especially considering that you don't really have PhD in this game, it's just not that great of a weapon to have. This will probably be one of our D tier weapons. I'm going to be honest, I think I'd rather have the Chi-Com and the Ballistic Knife over the RPG. Upgrade, it's a little bit different of a story. I don't know, the RPG just isn't that good. And thinking about it, I think I'll put it over the Chi-Com, but not the Ballistic Knives. I'm thinking the reason why is because the Ballistic Knives, you have the revivability, and the mobility is really good with the Ballistic Knives. However, the damage does suck with it, and the RPG is overall just not that great of a weapon, but it is definitely better than the Chi-Com regardless. And now we got another weapon that's not really that good either. This is kind of like Barrett territory. I think it is better than that's the thing though. Like, I keep thinking now, is it better than the Ballistic Knife? Like, the Ballistic Knife, like I said, the perks of the Ballistic Knife is the fact that it has great mobility and you can revive teammates. That's overall pretty solid. With the S12, the damage isn't really that good. The ammo sucks for it. I think I'm going to put it behind the Ballistic Knife just because the Ballistic Knife has so many better abilities with it on top of that, with reviving. Alright, so now we're finally moving away from the bad guns and we got the Scar H. So, it's going to be S tier. That's my opinion on it. Great damage, great ammo, pretty solid mobility, especially for an assault rifle. I think I'm going to put the Scar H above the Glill. It has more damage than the Glill, and I think it has a little bit less ammo than the Glill. I could be wrong, but it doesn't beat the Hammer just because it's like the Hammer's little brother. It's just not quite as good as the Hammer, mainly because the ammo isn't as good. But the damage is pretty good. So S tier obviously fits perfectly for the Scar H. I just don't think it's better than any of the LMGs in the game. Alright, so now we're going to move on to yet another map exclusive weapon. And in fact, it was actually in the same map as the Scar H. And that's the Squirpio Evo. Some of my favorite memories with this weapon is actually on last gen on PS3, which is like, it's weird to say that's last gen, but it was a long time ago. This thing would absolutely kill your frames per second on the last gen consoles, for the PS3 especially. If you had the Squirpio Evo with double tap, especially on split screen, you were getting like at best 15 frames per second. It was a nightmare. But besides those horrible memories, let's rank this gun properly. Alright, so I think it's proper to put the Squirpio Evo at B tier. I'm not sure where to put it though, but the ammo just goes really quick on this gun. I would say the M1927 is better than the Squirpio. Yeah, I think the Squirpio Evo is pretty solid, but the main problem with it is obviously the ammo goes way too quick on this gun. I'll give it credit though, it does shred the Panzer. Yeah, not much to say about this one, right? Yeah, there's not much to talk about this, right? It's better than the Cap 40, right? That's what we got going for it, right? I guess. All right, so the STG I think is A tier. So let me explain myself. I think it is overall a pretty solid weapon, and it's a wall weapon as well. I don't think it's quite S tier. So you know what? I think A tier fits perfectly right here for the STG 44. This is definitely the best version of the STG we got, by the way. I just wanted to say that. It is a thick boy. SVUAS, right? We're moving on from what I just said. I apologize for that. But anyways, SVUAS, really solid. I think it's not quite as good as the DSR-50. It's a really solid weapon. On top of that, it's a wall weapon, so that's really good to have for a sniper. There's not really that many bad things about this gun. There's not really that much to say otherwise. Alright, yeah, we're starting to get some of the bad guns again. It's not really that good. I think I'll put the Barrett in front of it. It's like an off-brand M1927, just with no ammo, and that's the main issue. Its damage isn't there, and the ammo isn't there either, so it's really not that good. Yeah, I'd rather the M14, Ballista, Olympia, yeah, all these guns, I think they're better than the Type 25. You could even say that the ballistic knives might be better than the Type 25. I don't know, I think the ballistic knife, the main thing with it is the damage is pretty bad as well. Alright, you know what, screw it, I'm changing this. This is gonna get C tier better than the Type 25. I'm gonna give the ballistic knife some credit. Alright, so now we only have two regular weapons left, and that's the Uzi and War Machine. We're gonna start with the Uzi. And the Uzi was only on one map, unfortunately, but it fit that map so good. Bond of the Dead with the Uzi, it was a pretty cool vibe to have. Yeah, the 1927 and the Uzi kind of feel similar to me. Their fire rate is pretty good, but the Uzi does have more damage, I'll give it credit. So I don't know, they're both wall weapons, so you don't really have to worry about ammo at that point. I'm honestly gonna say that the Uzi is better than M1927. There's nothing wrong getting the Uncle Gal every so often on Bond of the Dead. It is a pretty fun weapon to use. Yeah, I think B tier fits pretty well for the Uzi. And now we got this abomination in the War Machine. But we're not just gonna talk about the upgraded version. Let's talk about how disgraceful this thing is not upgraded. The fact that this thing even exists non-upgraded, why did Chark even think about this thing? Absolutely horrible. You're literally just throwing grenades. Like, that's it. Nothing upgraded, no explosion, nothing. It's just throw grenades. Don't use the War Machine. If you want to use grenades, go for it. I think upgraded, it's solid, like I said. Basically the same stat line as the M1911. Honestly, I'd rather have the M1911 non-upgraded, so I think C tier works for it. Like, non-upgraded just so bad that it brings it down to C tier. But upgraded, it's not that bad, I guess, so I don't know. I guess C tier works for the War Machine, I don't know. Now, finally, we are moving on to the Wonder Weapons. Yeah, for now, ignore all the weapons in the F tier. I was gonna put them back down here, but I don't think I can do that now, so we're just gonna keep them here at F tier for a second. These aren't F tier, by the way, they're all really solid. But we're gonna talk about our next weapon, and that's the Blundergat. Non-upgraded, really good. It's an absolute beast. Even upgraded, it's pretty good. However, the damage does fall off at some point. Considering it's not an infinite damage wonder weapon, it's not gonna be amazing, but it is pretty solid regardless. Now we're gonna stick with the Blundergat and the Acid Gat, and I think this version of the Acid Gat is better than the Blundergat. Everybody knows the strategy. You have a shield, you have the Acid Gat. That's your go-to move. But if we're talking about Blood of the Dead, I would say the Blundergat is a lot better than the Acid Gat. But like I said, there's Black Ops 2 weapons, so we're gonna keep the Acid Gat better than the Blundergat. Alright, so from there, I think I'm gonna move on to the Paralyzer, just so we have like it's kind of in order, I guess, a little bit. Other than the ability to just completely skip the maze in general, the Paralyzer is probably one of the most overrated wonder weapons in my opinion. It's technically infinite damage, but it still doesn't really feel all that strong, so it's obviously better than a jet gun, but it's nowhere near as good as the Blunder Gat and Acid Gat in my opinion, even though it is technically infinite damage. But sticking with buried, let's talk about the Mark II. I think the Mark II is better than the Acid Gat and the Blunder Gat. The Ray Gun Mark II is one of my all-time favorite weapons. It just looks so clean, and the way you use it, it's a 3-round burst. It's pretty cool. I don't know, it was just cool. For the first time ever, we got something that wasn't the original ray gun. We got a second iteration of the ray gun for the first time ever. It's a really cool wonder weapon. But before we get to the stats, let's talk about the original ray gun, right? I don't think it's as good as the Mark II, and it's not better than the Blunder Gat. We're gonna put it right here. It's better than the Paralyzer in my opinion, just because the overall damage it just feels better. I don't know what it is, but the Paralyzer just feels like it never does damage, but it is technically infinite damage. I don't understand the deal with the Paralyzer, but I just don't think it's all that good. Alright, so these last 4, I don't even know. Like, you can kind of put these stats anywhere. They're obviously gonna be better than the rest of the wonder weapons on that list. My personal favorites are the Fire and Lightning, so we'll start from there. We're gonna put, obviously it's here. Fire and Lightning. I honestly rather the Fire. I don't know. The staffs are so good. I think Ice Staff is mad overrated though. I'm gonna be honest. I think the staff is very overrated. I honestly, Wind and like, I think the Wind's the worst out of all of them. It's just like a off-brand Thunder Gun if you think about it like that. Yeah, you know what? I'm happy with this tier list. I feel like I'd get a lot of hate with this. There's some things that are like, even the ballistic knives, like I still think that's kind of low a little bit. You know what? Let me fix this. I'm a little bit more happy with this one now. I think this is a pretty solid list, and I think this is finalized. I think this is what I'm gonna go with. This is the final tier list I have. I am happy with all these guns, and for some reason, this is taking an hour and a half for me to do. I don't know how long the actual video is going to be. Alright guys, this is the final ranking system I'm going with. We have the wonder weapons, S tier, A, B, C, D, and F. Anyways, I am happy with the way I ranked all these weapons. I'm sure you can change some of them the more you think about them, such as the ballistic knife, but other than that, I'm pretty happy with how this list is looking. But yeah guys, that'll do for today's video. If you guys want to rank these yourselves, I did make this tier list and I did link it in my Discord as well as in the comment section of this video and in the description of the video. So if you guys are interested, feel free to check out this tier list and feel free to join my Discord server so I can see how you guys tier lists look. Well anyways guys, that'll do for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, feel free to leave a like on the video. But anyways guys, that's all I have for today. Have yourselves a great day and we'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out. Hello, hopefully this doesn't get corrupt, this file, because it's an hour long. I'm just ranking these. I just rambled off on these. I don't know. It'll be a long video. Jesus, dude. It'll be like half an hour video.